Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible season.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakely will dive to the inside.
We'll go bust. We got our elbows out.
Ronard takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Yarda Watmere is your champion.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the PSGL YouTube channel, where today we get underway for the first time onto F1 25. Of course, we've had a bit of a hiatus over the past couple of months, where, of course, we've been getting ourselves prepared for the brand new game, and finally, it is here. Of course, we are on the early access version, and of course, the full game releases tomorrow, but many of our drivers who take part have already got the early access, so they'll be taking part in a 50% race around Spain this evening. Great to be back here on the YouTube channel. Of course, it's been a while since I've been here. I was here last, I think, in March when we concluded E-Series, where Veloci Academy took the championship. And it's great to be back once again, and hopefully featuring a little bit more here on PSGL. And we'll have a quick look at the track that we're taking to tonight. Of course, it is Spain, Catalonia, a brilliant circuit. In my opinion, one of the most underrated on the calendar. Of course, lap times very short, so qualifying is definitely going to be quite intense, and we're certainly going to see some quite close times. Of course, another thing as well to note for tonight is that we have preset setup, so everybody's probably going to be on the exact same setup, bar a few minor tweaks such as differential, brake bias, and of course their tyre pressures. But then again, they're probably all going to run the same anyway, so we'll certainly be interesting to see what these drivers could do. Of course, going into this new game, one of the main things that drivers have mentioned is, first of all, heavy improvements in the handling. It's a lot better than it was in the last game. Of course, flicking does still exist, mainly in qualifying, because it has got higher tyre wear. So, of course, in a race, you don't want to be getting such high tyre wear from using flicking. You'll go back to more of a smoother style when it comes into your handling and steering in corners. And also, another thing to notice as well is that the tyre wear in general is a lot higher. Someone in the chat was saying earlier on that in 5 laps on the hards, they had over 20% on their tyres, which means 2 stops may be a feature in this game. But of course, we haven't got long until we get to find out and see. But of course, the one thing everybody wants to know here in the chat is what grid have we got for tonight? Well, it is a very, very strong grid. I think one person to mention is Brendan Lee. Of course, former F1 Esports 2-time champion will be here this evening. Great to have him back on the grid. And then a bit of a run through as well. We have in the McLarens, Tony Hirtala and Judah Pressakan. Ferrari, we have Tumis Lemonen and Leo Lund. Red Bull, we have Elio Tomasetto and Alexander Dimas. Mercedes, we have Riccardo Benzoni and Angelo Di Ortenzio. Aston Martin, Jan Halliday and Luca Rapassa. Then we have Alpine with Lucas Baisner and Rishan Jacobs. Haas, Larry Tolke and Leonardo Tonolato. V-Carb, we have Kian Godendorp and Louis Welch. Williams, Nelson Alves and Conrad Bowman. Then, of course, finally, Sauber with Tom Roberts and Brendan Lee. So a very, very strong lineup to take us into this evening. We've got everybody in the lobby, so hopefully we haven't got too long before we can head our way into the qualifying session. And, of course, as well, to make things a bit simpler, we have just got clear weather this evening. No possible rain. It'll all just be the clear weather. And normally I'd have someone alongside me to kind of feed off of what I'm saying, but unfortunately I'm alone tonight. We have got a second lobby as well. That'll be Joseph Black in the commentary box. That one will be at 8 PM. Same track, just a completely different grid, and I've got to say that grid as well, looking very strong. One of the main things to notice is there's at least 3 or 4 drivers on that grid that have moved from PlayStation or Xbox onto PC, so there'll be lots to keep an eye out for and see what the drivers could do. But of course, welcome everybody in to the chat. Hello 420, Jack Harrington, Tioze, Matthias, Lucas, Cameron's dad, Welcome in, everybody. Great to have you all in here, of course, for the start of a brand new game, and hopefully a bit more of a relaxing, less issue-led game cycle. Of course, day one, it's been quite positive. I myself have driven the game, and to be fair, I'd be happy driving it myself all game. Of course, I'm not very quick, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm really, really happy with the work that Codemasters and EA have put into it. I think last game they realised that what they did and what they produced was nowhere near the quality that they could do, so this game they've had to step it up, and I think they've done a very good job in doing so. And Jack says, anyone know whether slip still is an issue in quali on this game? I would not have a clue what you mean, unfortunately, Jack, so I'm not the person to ask. Good evening, Cameron Stad. Great to have you in the chat as normal. Of course, Cameron will be here, but he will be in the second lobby later on. Lucas Flume as well, congratulations on achieving your engineering role at Red Bull. Great to see what you can do over there. And Tiozo Sports, unfortunately, I don't speak the language that you've popped in the chat, unfortunately. But if you do place it into English, I can respond. And also Pascal, welcoming, great to have you in the chat as usual too. And Jack saying, last game we had to have ghosting on as slipstream. Oh, that's what you mean by slip. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't really looked if we have slipstream on or not. I thought actually, yeah, we should have looked into that, but I don't think anybody I know has even tested it. So hopefully it's fixed. I'm hoping so. Dirty air exists now, so maybe that has just fixed it. Being as dirty air actually is a thing in this game. And Matthias saying it won't be a problem. Brilliant. That's one thing we love to see. And also, featuring again, we have no restarts between quali and race. We are actually going to go straight from the qualifying session into the race. So we haven't got to mess around, waffle on for 10 minutes, have people jumping in and out, waiting until we can get underway. But I am actually waiting to get us started. We have got the timer at the top, which means we are heading our way into the qualifying session very shortly. And of course, guys, once we get into the session, I'd like you to kind of list a few drivers that you expect a lot of this game. Of course, tonight, I don't think means anything. If a driver that we normally see at the back of F2 wins, I don't think that means much at all because they're on preset setups. Some of them have done 15, 20 hours of practice already. Some of them have done 1 or 2. So yes, I'm definitely not going to look too much into the results here tonight, but we are entering our way in. Finally, a brand new circle here on PSGL. And we can see as well a new loading screen as well. Not as good as last time, but to be fair, I'd rather EA focus on the game than the graphics and the overlays behind. Also, another thing to mention is that my audio has been a little bit dodgy recently. So if I all of a sudden cut out, please let me know in the chats and I can quickly adjust and fix it, because it did the same thing last night in SRC, which was not ideal. Yes, for now, it's actually going quite well. So yes, great to get ourselves back into a new cycle. A couple drivers just loading in, and then we can head our way in and see who is on the grid. Of course, I've already read out the list of drivers in the field, but you get to see for yourselves once we load in who's going to be taking part. There we go. And also, one thing that EA needs to change, and I'm hoping they do, if not, I'll put a little message in into their forum, is that the font size isn't changing. So half of the names, you can't see them. So I've got Pastel Lamb. I don't know who that is. Of course. Oh, I'm saying we don't see the bits. I hope that fixes, because that sounded really weird. There we go, it's fixed. That sounded really weird for a second, guys. But we do have a few cars out on track. If I didn't pause the game. There we go. So, Nelson Alves here in the Williams, of course, one of the development drivers for the Williams Esports team. Great to have him on the grid here tonight in his Williams car. And then, of course, we have Tony Hietala as well, one of the F2 and F3 drivers from last season on F124. Jan Halliday, one of the esports development drivers for Aston Martin. We have Lucas Baisner, one of the other German drivers that has just been here forever, it seems. Then we have Leo Lund, one of the young protégés of Veloce Academy. He was one of the reasons why Veloce Academy took their championship victory in E-Series on last game. We've got Jude Presican, also part of the Veloce Academy team. Let's have a little look further down. Kian Godendorp, of course, one of the development drivers for Red Bull Sim Racing as well. Great to have him back with us. for F125, and I've got to say, when it came to qualifying last game, Keane was certainly one of those top guys, so certainly keep an eye on him this evening. We've got Elliot Tomasetto, who I believe has just been jumping around between PS and PC on the last game, because I saw him feature a lot in E-Series, but then also he was featuring over on WOR in the console division as well. So I think he's just one of those that jumps in between, but great to have him here on PC. And then, of course, the man that everybody should recognise, Brendan Lee. And on the hard tyres, so that tells me he's doing a little bit of practice here tonight, just getting himself a little bit adjusted to the brand new game. But let's have a little look here at Louis Welch. Of course, I'm a lobby host, one of our many trusted lobby hosts of PSGL. Let's see what he can do on his opening lap here around Spain. You can see heading in towards the TV3 pod chicane now, down to 4th gear, back on the power straight away as you head up towards turn number 9. The long right-hander hit the curb on the inside, and then of course flat to the floor. DRS is open, battery can be burnt here, down in towards the braking zone of turn 10. Of course, you can see just running a little bit wide, able to get the power down nice and early. As now we can see Louis heading up into the final couple of corners here, into turn 13 and 14 shortly, the penultimate and the final corner around this circuit. Nelson Alves, the first lap time on the board at 1:11.6. Golden goes a tenth and a half quicker with a .533. And Louis Welch there quite considerably off the pace. Zio Lund jumps up into P2, Tony Hirtella into P4, and then Alexander Dimas as well up into that top 5 in the Red Bull. And let's see what Elliot Tomasetto can do here. He heads his way through into the final couple of corners. I think that was Junior Pesacan there, just jumping up into P7 there, 3/10 off the fastest lap so far. As that will be, I think, Lucas Baisnat up into P7. Tomasetto jumps up into P7. What about Conrad Bohm? Unfortunately, has suffered from an invalidation. What about Larry Tulke here in the Haas, heading through into towards the final corner now? Let's see what can the Haas car do. Of course, part of the FVR esports team as well. To the line, goes up into P10. And then we have Leonardo Tonelato, part of the new reprofiled, I think it was CPI team. Now he's SCI, of course. Shizou and CPI had a merger during the end of the last game. And now, of course, they're here on PC as SCI. So, of course, make sure to get used to that name, because that is definitely a team we're going to hear a lot of going into this new game. As Luca Rapassa, didn't notice him there jumping up into the top 5 in the Aston Martin car. Of course, originally it was meant to be Duncan Hoffland racing, but he pulled out, and Luca Rapassa was placed into that car. And let's see what can Leonardo Tonelato do here in the Haas. His teammate Larry Tulking is in P10. Let's see what the other Haas can achieve. Heading out the final corner to the line, jumps up to P7 with a .745, just 3 thousandths away from Alexander Dimas's time. And then we see Rishan Jacobs as well on to track, of course, part of the Tomashing Sim Racing team in the Alpine here for tonight's endeavours. His teammate on track is Lucas Baisnat, but of course they are part of 2 different teams, so will be interesting to see what he can do. But then the 2 drivers that I think everybody is going to be keeping an eye on this game is the Italian duo of Riccardo Benzoni and Angelo D'Ortenzio. They're just, I don't even have words. They are just brilliant drivers. Of course, both very young as well in the scene. They've got lots of time to develop. Certainly, there'll be esports teams looking to get these guys this game. Of course, going into dev spots. Once to 16, I don't know any reason why both of them couldn't make it into F1 Pro Series. They are both 2 very brilliant young Italian proteges, and both of them on a lap at the moment. The first one to cross the line will be Riccardo Benzoni. Of course, both of them in the Mercedes, heading through in towards turn 12, and then, of course, 13 and 14 to end off the lap. Let's see what can Benzoni do on his first lap of the F125 game. It's still Keane Godendorp ahead of Jan Halliday at the top. To the line goes Benzoni, only goes 12th. What about D'Ortenzio? Up into P2, but still nobody can touch Keane Godendorp. And I said earlier on, he's a driver to watch out in qualifying, and so far he's proven us right. As we now head our way with Rishan Jacobs out of turn 3 in towards the braking zone of turn number 4. A 21.591 for the first sector here for Rishan. Of course, I don't have a clue about sector times here, and I think many of the drivers are also trying to figure out what sector times are good and what are bad. They're all learning the game as much as we are here, watching along in the chat. Of course, guys in the chat, welcome in. Great to have you all in here for the first event of F1 25, the first race of a brand new game cycle. Hopefully a more happy one and a less stress-led game cycle as well. And Rishan, unfortunately, they're receiving an invalidation and will be, I presume, getting ready to go again. If he's not got enough fuel, he'll go into the pits. And Brendan Lee on the hard tyres. Now, I don't expect him to jump any higher than 19th, considering his tyres are rather slow and, of course, rather hard. So let's see what Brendan Lee can do. Of course, retiring from F1 Sim Racing at the end of last season. Had a very long career. I think it was 7 years in total that Brendan Lee had in F1 esports or F1 Sim Racing. And it's great to see him back on track, still giving it all of his best, even though he's not going to be racing in the main championship late, well, we presume later on, the end of the year, or possibly heading into 2026. Let's see what Brendan Lee can do here so far. Looking so far so good as he heads his way through turn 3. The long right-hander, of course, running out a little bit wide to get yourself a nice run in towards turn number 4. It's a 22.3, so you can see already 8/10 off of what Rishan Jacobs did in Sector 1. And Rishan was on a pretty decent lap as well, I've got to say. But let's have a little look here at Nelson Alves, also heading through the first sector here. Currently sits in P4, around a 10th off away from pole position. Is he up in the first sector? No, he's down by 7/10. What about Leo Lund here? He's up by half a tenth in Sector 2, but unfortunately is invalidated. So he won't be looking to improve least time around. What about Tony Hirtala in P7 at the moment in the McLaren? Of course, doing a great job and one of many FVR drivers in the lobby and currently the quickest of them all. So let's see what he can do on this next lap. Also, 7/10 down in Sector 1. Not sure what's going on there as Rishan Jacobs does set a lap. Jumps up into P8 there with a .715. Alexander Dimas there up into P4 with a decent lap indeed. What about Louis Welch down in P18, down in that first sector, only on a 112.1. So it's not the best start to this game here for Louis Welch. Also runs a bit wider and unfortunately goes off the circuit. Heading on the exit of turn 5. What about Pastor Lamb? Don't know what the last letter is, so we'll just stick to Pastor for this one. Of course, one of the FVR drivers, I don't know which one it is, because they all like to have random names of previous F1 drivers, but I can't remember LAM being part of Formula 1. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, that I sound stupid. As we did see Tom Roberts there in the kick sober, jump up into P12 behind his teammate from SCI, Leonardo Tonelato in the Haas. What about Pastor? Heading out the final corner, I have been told it is Thomas Lamminen, heads to the line, jumps up into P15. The decent 111.804. What about Lucas Baisner here in the Alpine car? Of course, part of TF10. Many of those here tonight in this session. Let's see what he can manage. He's up by 9 thousandths in Sector 1. So, decent. Still improving here on this one as he heads down towards the braking zone of turn 5. Of course, let's go on board. We can see that flicking is here in qualifying, but we know in the race, you can't really get away with it, because the tyre wear is so much higher when you're flicking the car in and out of corners. So that's one thing the drivers have got to be careful of as Keane going up. Takes another 10th down and a 111.477. The driver in the RB car, a very, very nice lap there by Keane. I want to keep an eye then on Jan Halliday, who I believe is preparing to go again. Let's see, is Jan preparing to go? He certainly is. We'll go on board with the Aston Martin development driver. Of course, has been in the scene for such a long time. I remember the first time I commentated over Jan was back in season 30 in F4. Has came a long way since, and now is a development driver for one of the best teams in F1 Sim Racing. Let's see what he can do as he heads his way through turn 3, eating a lot of curb through there. Not many drivers we've seen do that, so maybe that's a bit of a tactic to work, and it does, because he's up there on a 21.5 in the first sector. Could be looking to take down the time of Angelo D'Otenzio in the Mercedes into turn 5. And of course you can see a lot of curb usage here by Jan Halliday. And another comment by many drivers here is that the curbs almost feel flat. They feel like they don't exist, of course, apart from the big sausage curbs. So that's another thing that we can factor into some of our qualifying laps and some of our race runs as well, is how much curb you can afford to use. As Benzoni jumps up into P6, Angelo D'Otenzio failing off his latest lap, and Jan Halliday is up by nearly a 10th in that middle sector. So let's see what he can do in Sector 3. 2 corners to go here for the Aston Martin as he Heads into turn 14 at the final corner now, and up to the line. What will it be here for Jan Halliday? Can he take that time away from Godendorp? No, he can't, and he does improve by a decent chunk and goes just 20 thousandths back from Kian Godendorp's time here. As of course, welcome into everybody in the chat. Let us know your predictions. Who do you think will get pole here from what we've seen so far? Many drivers are looking to try and tackle that top spot, but no one has got ahead of Godendorp at all in this session, as Leo Lund up into P4, another very solid qualifier on this grid here this evening. Will be great to see what he can achieve later on, as I think that was Alves there jumping up into P6 earlier on. If not, he's going to be on a lap at the moment into the final couple of corners. What can Alves do in the Williams? P6 at the moment, a couple of tenths away from pole position. Up to the line, will it be an improvement? It certainly will. Up into P3 there, a 10th clear of where he was earlier on, and now he's only a 10th away from that pole position spot. Let's have a look further down the grid. Here we have Tudor Pressakan in P14 at the moment, heading down to turn 5. I think from that angle, looks like he went a little bit wide heading into the braking zone as he heads his way up into the TV3 Pont Chicane. Oh, and you can see just a little bit wide there, not carrying the speed through that we would have expected him to carry through. And now heads down towards turn 10. DRS is open. Battery can be utilised there in this back straight. And he's up by 69 thousandths here. So he's looking to be up and around possibly P8 here, possibly even P7 if you can up this final sector. So far so good for Tudor Pressakan. He heads now into the final corner. No, he doesn't. He heads into the pit lane. What about Rishan Jacobs? Has had an invalidation, so I presume will be going again. Never mind, he must have invalidated on the final corner, and that's given him a invalidation for this and next lap. So he's going to have to go around again, or head into the pit lane. What about Louis Welch? Did find an improvement last time out, but still 6 tenths away from that pole position spot. Not looking ideal here for Louis Welch. I'm not sure if he's still on pad or if he's on wheel now, because I think it was F123. He switched to wheel at the start and was considerably off the pace, and then switched back to controller, and he was an alien again on the pad. So not too sure what Louis is doing, if he's on the pad or the wheel, because it's certainly a surprise to see him so far away in lap times, especially considering all of them are probably on the exact same setup. So let's have a look here at Lucas Baisner. He's the only one at the moment on a qualifying lap, just heading through out of turn 12. Currently P17 is around a 10th away from P12. 2 tenths away from P5. A very close qualifying order so far. As he heads to the line, where does he jump up to? Up into P9 with a 6.74. Just ahead of Tony Hietala, who's just heading out onto track. We'll be keen to see what Tony can do. Of course, I've heard that FER was doing a lot of practicing for this event tonight, so I'd expect to see them a little bit higher than P10, P12 and P18. Not the start that they would have been hoping, considering we've heard they've been sweating a lot, but then again, so has everybody. They've all been playing this game so much. I was looking on my friends list earlier on, and the game's been out for 2.5 days, and we've got people with 18, 19, 20 hours already played. I mean, I've played 15. That's besides the point. I'm not trying to sweat to be good. I was just doing a lot of career mode with Will Gibson. That actually didn't end too well. Unfortunately, we both had a DNF. Will Gibson qualified me in the Apex car, which was around a second and a half slower than McLaren, so yeah, do with that what you will. But let's see what Halliday can do on this lap. Just heading down towards turn 10. Of course, he's on an out lap. He will be his final lap in the session, and only has to find a little bit of time to beat Kian Godendorp's lap. But we know with Kian, whatever lap he's done, he can always edge that out a little bit more. Always find that little bit extra time that he needs to secure pole position. So we'll have a bit of an onboard, and I can rest my voice for a minute. Let's have a little look at what Jan Halliday can manage in the Aston Martin. Never mind, he's doing a double out lap. Thanks, Jan, that's helpful. Let's go and to Tony. He's 31 thousandths down in the first sector. Let's see what he can do in the final two. There we go. P3 for Tony Hirtella. A very, very nice improvement. He listened to what I said earlier on. He was in P10, jumps up onto the provisional second row of the grid, and now all the cars are right on their laps. Jan Halliday will be looking to go again, so he's gone for the double out lap. Kian Godendorp looks like he's straight on the power here. Heading through out of turn 3 into turn 4. Is he up in sector 1 is a question. He certainly is. 30 thousandths up here in that first sector alone. Looking to already breach that gap even more. The Jan Halliday. He heads down to turn 5. Back on the power on the exit. Try not to run too wide there, because as soon as you go over that white line, that is your lap done and dusted. But Kian, yet again, just on the pace. You could hear there the rear end sliding as he headed out the chicane. Still confident to put his foot down onto the throttle at max as he heads down towards the braking zone of turn 10. He's up by over a tenth here. Could be on for a 111.3, possibly into the high 2s if he can nail sector 3. Let's see what can Kian Godendorp do now. Heading into the final 2, and he's invalidated. Kian Godendorp has invalidated his lap. He's not going to have enough battery to go again. So let's see. Can Jan Halliday take it away here in the Aston Martin? What's his improvement in Sector 2? He's down by nearly a tenth, so it might not be the lap either for Jan Halliday unless he can have a stellar Sector 3. Alexander Dimas manages P8 to no higher here in this session. Rishan Jacobs to the top of the order with a 111.466 in the Alpine. Now, I certainly did not expect that. What about Jan Halliday to the line? Can he go quickest? No, he can't. Stays in third spot. Lund is down by a second in Sector 2. What about Nelson Alves here in P5 at the moment, P6 now. Can he try and take that pole position lap away? As that was Riccardo Benzoni, only managing P7 in the Mercedes. Larry Talkie up into the top 10 route. Luca Rapassa matching the time of Benzoni. And Alves here is up by half a tenth in that middle sector. Is it enough, though, to bridge that gap closer? Is it enough to jump up onto the second row of the grid now? As he heads his way through into turn 14, Angelo D'Ortenzio takes that lap time away from Rishan Jacobs, takes pole. Alves to the line, jumps up into P4, a decent improvement indeed. And we can see no improvement there from Kian Godendorp. Will be back into the pits after his invalidation. Lucas Baisnat, P15 only. And I think that might be all the laps on the timing board here in qualifying this evening. Unfortunately, Brendan Lee on the hard tyres only manages P20. Who would have thought that? But it's Angelo D'Ortenzio on pole, ahead of Rishan Jacobs here, heading into the Spanish Grand Prix. And well, that was certainly a surprise indeed, and we can just see the gap so close here between our top 10, 13 thousandths separating our top 2. Then it's going to be Godendorp in third, who would have probably taken that away with a 0.3. He was up by over a tenth in Sector 2. Then we have Alves, Halliday, Hirtella, Lund, Benzoni, Rapassa, Tolkien, the top 10. Then we have Prezakan, Dimas, Tonelato, Tomasetto, Baisner, Welch, Roberts, Bohm. Then we have Pastor, or Thomas Lemanen, and then Brendan Lee, our full qualifying grid. 3.5 tenths separating everybody here. And Louis Welch did find enough to put himself only 3 tenths away, so not too much of a worry as it could have been for Louis Welch heading into qualifying. But of course, we haven't got the restarts. Finally, we could just head straight into the race. My balls would be dead, but who cares? We want to be here for the race and the no breaks in between. So guys, let us know in the chat before we get underway. What is your prediction for the race win? Who's going to take it away here? Will it be our pole sitter? Will it be somebody else a little bit further down in the grid? And of course, make sure to keep an eye for tyres and pit stops, because we have seen rumours there could be 2 stops featuring this evening. So make sure to keep an eye out for that one. But we are just waiting now for everybody to check, get their tyres on, have a chat with their engineers if they have them, and just make sure they're ready for the race. We've got softs, mediums and hards featuring here on the grid, and that's what we love to see. Such a disparity between all the different tyres. And now I've said that, they're all going to switch on to hards and go out like that. I guarantee it. And Salazov says, Brendan's winning this, no doubt. Last to first. If anyone can do it, it's Brendan Lee. So we'll have to see what he can do from the rear of the field. And a bit of a prolonged wait as everybody's getting themselves sorted out for the Grand Prix. And looking at so we're seeing more hards now. So softs are disappearing. We've got hards and mediums. Yes, Yona, it is preset setups for this one. And same for Lobby 2 as well at 8 PM. And here we go. A brand new dawn here for Formula 1 sim racing. 5 lights out here. around Spain. And his light set, and a great start from our top two as we head our way down towards turn one. And Rishan Jacobs with an even better start than Angelo D'Ortenzio. And into, oh, that's someone in the barriers there, in towards the pit wall. That was Louis Welch, off into the barriers. Rishan Jacobs carries the lead through in towards turn 1, 2 and 3. Keane Gundorp in P2 ahead of D'Ortenzio. And here Taller as well, moving down as Jan Halliday gets a better of him round the outside in towards turn 4. As we head our way through a nice little battle between these two, and Angelo D'Ortenzio holding them both up as we head our way down towards turn 5. Leo Lund there in P9. I think got a bit swamped at the start there, lost a couple of positions in the process of turn 1 and actually makes 2 out of turn 5. We've got 3 wide moments here between Rapasa, Benzoni and Dimas, but that seems to fizzle down a lot quicker than we would have imagined so there. As we head our way through turn 9, back down to turn 10 on lap 1, it's Rishan Jacobs that holds the lead ahead of Godendorp in second place, and then D'Ortenzio in P3, as we do see Dimas there making a move ahead of Benzoni for P9. Let's see as they carry their way through. Mercedes versus Red Bull, we've seen that happen many times and end in a lot of contact, and Dimas there making a nice move and jumping up into P10. Further back there we can see Brendan Lee. What a start from the former F1 esports champion. 6 positions in only 1 lap, and Conrad Bohm must have been the driver that made contact with Welch earlier on. Welch is into the pit lane, and Conrad Bohm is far down near the bottom. But as we head our way into turn 1, no changes at the front of the field there. They all make their way through the first couple of corners quite nicely. And let's look at the tyres. That's the one thing we all want to see. Curiously, only 3 drivers taking the mediums. Of course, both of them at the back, obviously, is pity for them. So only 2 cars started on a medium. Everybody else is on the hard tyres. So that could certainly feature into this one, as Leo Lund there looking for a send on Tony Hirtella there, but couldn't quite make that one work, I should say. And then Tony himself was looking quite close to the rear of Nelson Alves as they went through turn 5. We head our way now into turn 9 once again. And let's see what can happen here. Anybody going to be looking for a move? We did see Leo Lund again closing in nicely on the back of Tony. We'll just opt to stay behind for now, and then looking further ahead. Of course, Kian on the medium tyre, surprisingly not ahead of Rishan. I would have thought he would have been as he's on, a lot fresher tyres, a lot better tyres than what Rishan's on. But no, still sticking behind here as we have our DRS Open on lap 3 of 33. Rishan there taking the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. You can see all the cars all filing down in towards turn 1. Nobody keen to make a move just yet. What about further back there? Judah Pressecan is on the back of Jumas Lamin and in towards turn 1. And you can see the Ferrari there moving to the inside to defend that P17 spot. And further ahead, we can see here Lucas Baisnap was looking for a move on Leonardo Tonelato, but has now opened the opportunity to Tom Roberts into turn 4. Tom looks to make the move. Further ahead, though, Leo Lund has made a move ahead of Tony Hirtella. And I didn't see where that was made, but I presume it was up into towards turn 4, which was a superb move. As now we can see Luca Rapasa looking to go side by side with the McLaren as they head their way in towards the chicane, the uphill chicane, a horrible corner this is in Formula 1, as that was a couple of cars going side by side. Brendan Lee looking to jump up into P14 through turn 9. Can he get ahead around the outside? Of course he can. It's Brendan Lee. What can't he do? As we head our way down towards turn 10, can he hold off that P14 spot ahead of Lucas Baisnap? He certainly does. Up into P14 goes Brendan Lee, just following his teammate through as they head on to lap 4 of 33 here. Of course, P20 for Brendan. Up into P14, a top 10 is certainly possible here this evening. As we begin our next lap of the race, Leo Lund now taking the fastest lap, so the fastest driver on track on that last endeavour, and Luca Rapasa there closing in quite nicely. For Tony Hirtella, is he close enough to make a move? No, but we'll stick on board here with the Aston Martin. He heads his way through the first couple of corners here, down towards turn 4. You could see did get a decent run, but actually had to lift out the throttle there, so was probably at risk of losing the rear. As we head our way into turn 4, Rapasa goes for a dive bomb. Does dabble into the grass there, so that's not going to help him on the exit. Into turn 5, you can see immediately the McLaren to the inside line, holding off from Rapasa. Can't get moved around the outside, but here comes Alexander Dimas on the medium tyres, looking to make a move possibly into the chicane. Does get ahead. What a move from Alexander Dimas up into P8 in the Red Bull. That was a superb overtake. Of course, we know is on the softer tyres, but either way, that is a superb move. As we head our way down towards turn 10, D'Ortenzio was quite close to the back of Godendorp there, as we do see the two Assis swapping around, and that's causing a right train behind there. Tolkien, Tonelato, Roberts all finding through. Brendan Lee was looking up the inside of his teammate there for a moment, but couldn't quite settle that one. We head our way into the final corner. Let's see what Tom Roberts can do, because you could see right on the edge of getting ahead of Leonardo Tonelato there. As we head back down towards turn 1, DRS is open. Battery's going to be used by some drivers, others opting to just keep it in their storage for now. We head into turn 1, of course. As last game, the batteries are the same. We have our non, medium, overtake and hot lap. Many drivers choosing to use non around many parts of the circuits, a lot of the corners, just to save that battery so when they need it, they can use it and they haven't got to worry about bringing it all back up again and having battery to use. We head down to turn 5. Halliday there was looking up the inside of D'Ortenzio for a moment, but couldn't quite get a move, and I think that was Conrad Bomb then must have made a mistake further back, because we have got a yellow flag, or we did have a yellow flag, and it's decided not to leave my screen, unfortunately. Let's hope that's not a glitch that we're going to have all game long, as now that was, I think, Nelson Alves looking to go around the outside of Jan Halliday towards turn on, and that doesn't stick very often, and that did bring Leo Lund a little bit closer there to possibly making a move, and looking a little bit further behind there. That's going to be a side-by-side move between Baisner and between Laminen, and up into P16 goes a Ferrari. Brilliant move there by Laminen. Then looking a little bit further ahead, once again Dimas, of course, on these medium tyres, looking to make them work, looking to close down a little bit more on the back of Tony Hietala. And I've got to say, people said D'Ortenzio was back, and I think it certainly is at a decent degree, because we're no longer having cars 1 to 2 tenths apart. Of course, in the corners they are, but on the straights you can see them a little bit further apart than what we saw on the last game. Of course, I think they could probably do more to implement D'Ortenzio, but for now, it's an improvement, and that's what we're all looking for. As Dimas there looking to make a move up the inside of Hietala in towards turn 4. He's going to have it around the outside though into turn 5. Can he sweep the Red Bull around? He's going to go for it, isn't he? Hangs at the outside line out of turn 5, and he's going to have to risk it, isn't he? He's going to have to go for a move in towards the chicane. Never mind, backs out in the process of that one, and stays in P8. But that was Hietala making a bit of a mistake, hitting the curb, and through goes Dimas up into P7. And now we could see a move possibly from Luca Rapassa, who was quite close in the wheel tracks of Hietala there, heading in towards turn 10. But this time not quite close enough to make a move. Let's see further ahead there, Nelson Alves just sticking in P5 for now on the back of Halliday. Of course, these two teammates for the 2020, well, part of the 2025 campaign, I suppose, for E-Series, but it was Season 5. These two nearly took the championship themselves, but unfortunately lost it on the final round. Two very good friends, of course. Both of them not, well, at least Nelson not doing as much work at all for the ES as before, but still two very good friends. But of course on track, it's a whole different ball game between these two. They're now rivals. Two development drivers probably fighting for esports seats in the near future. So they've got to both show what they're worth, what they're capable of doing. Further back here, Rapassa with a decent exit out of turn 4, switched to him at the right time. Could be looking for a move in towards turn 5, and what a terrible camera angle. We didn't see any of the move, but he's got the move done anyway. Up into P8 goes Luca Rapassa, unless Hietala's going to try and take it around the outside. I think he was thinking about it, but just couldn't quite get it done. And Rapassa there with a poor exit. That does bring Riccardo Benzoni to the outside in towards turn 9, and the second lap in a row that Hietala's been mugged off at the exit of turn 8. Can he go for ascending towards turn 10? He's going to go for it, isn't he? In the McLaren, pushes Benzoni a bit wide, or forces Benzoni to go a little bit wide, but either way, can't make that move work. And Benzoni up into that top 10 in the Mercedes. His teammate D'Ortenzio up in P3. Let's see here what Alves can do. Yet again, right in the wheel tracks of Jan Halliday, but not close enough again to make an overtake. And we could see there Leo Lund moving over. And does that mean that they're having to cool the engine down? Because I know that was a thing featuring in 23. Didn't feature in 24, I don't believe, but we did see them immediately moving out of the slipstream. They want to keep their engine cool. I'll be honest, I don't know what it does, because that's not my job. But all I know is that's what they're doing. So anybody in the chat, let me know, why do they cool the engine down? I know it's to keep it cool, but I don't know what sort of purpose it has in racing, at least in the F1 game, because it could have some very stupid reason of how it affects something. As we head our way through, see what the two passes are capable of doing. They're yet again right on the back of each other, heading in towards the chicane. This time Hietala does take the chicane perfectly fine and doesn't have to worry this time around from the car behind us. Jack Harrington You lose a power over time from the engine overheating. Ah, okay. That solves that one, so that makes a lot of sense. That explains why a lot of drivers are pulling out the slipstream, heading down towards turn 1 and also possibly into turn 10 as well. And Jack says the limit in 23 was at 130. And then Carson says it is worse this game, I believe. Well, that makes it even more crucial, and that's why we're not seeing everybody within a tenth of each other, because they're actually having to move out of slipstream there and not getting that advantage into some of the braking zones. And to be fair, it might make the on-track action a little bit dire, but strategy-wise, does make it interesting. Certainly can see a few different results because of that. Drivers making their way through the field nicely if they can play their race management perfectly. And also, it gives more of a job for engineers, because last game it seemed like they didn't have much to do, but now they certainly do. Heading on to 25. Taking a quick drink there of... I can't remember the last time. I've not stopped talking for about an hour, nearly. It's been constant action, constant things to watch here. On track so far. We'll head our way through. Let's have a little look further down. We'll look at Thomas Laminen in the Ferrari. I've got to be honest, didn't see much of him on the last game. I know we've driven a lot, but don't think it was the best game in 24 for Thomas Laminen. I don't think put that much practice in either. And if I'm honest, I couldn't blame him, because I certainly wouldn't either. But let's hope this is the resurgence here for Laminen, because I know on the end of 23 he was damn quick and was easily F2 level. But 24, don't think he was F2 level at all, unfortunately. But let's see what he can do this game. And now Lundy's right on the back of Alves. Could we see him move? No, because he looks like he hopped the curb a little bit too much heading out of the final corner and has lost him some time heading down towards turn 1. This time around, no moves being made. Everybody moving out to the slipstream. They don't want to have an overheated engine. That's the last thing they want here. As they all head their way through the first sector once again. Lap 10 to 33, so around a third of the way through this one. We will be on a third of the way through once we hit the next lap. Been a bit of a slow and steady start, but of course a brand new game. It's always going to be a little bit slow at the starters. Now, Rapassa getting his elbows out in the Aston Martin. Gets ahead of Dimas. Can Dimas fight back? He can in towards turn 5. That's a gigantic send by Alexander Dimas, and actually catches Leo Lund as well in the grips of it as we head our way into turn number 8. Can Alexander Dimas stay ahead? He certainly can, and now Benzoni will be looking to capitalise. Rapassa, you can see, looking to make a move. He won't be happy with that one there by Dimas in the Red Bull. And you can just see, though, a little bit wide for Rapassa heading in towards turn 9 and doesn't quite get the exit he would have wanted and does lose time. Italo there looking to make a move ahead of Riccardo Benzoni as they head into turn 12. The outside line for the McLaren, the inside for the Mercedes, and just for now, you can see Benzoni keeping that position ahead and stays in P9 here. As we head on to lap 11 of 33, a third of the way through this race, and the top 3 hasn't changed. It's still Jacobs ahead of Godendorp, ahead of D'Ortenzio, as they head down towards turn number 1. And further back we can see, I think, someone covering off a move. That was, I think, Italo there was looking to make a move ahead of Benzoni possibly. As we head our way through the first couple of corners, down towards turn 4 we go once again. Brendan Lee there in P14, looking to make a move on his teammate now. Tom Roberts, is he going to fight? Brendan Lee is a question. He's got to, hasn't he, surely? We head our way through turn 4, but you can see Brendan Lee there being held up a little bit by the Haas. Can't quite get his foot then as quick as he would have liked to. And now Tom Roberts can make a send. Bit of contact between the two teammates in the kick Sauber. And Rapassa has got that move ahead of Alexander Dimas. And this time Dimas does bail out. Isn't going to fight it this time ahead of the Aston Martin. But you could see again Rapassa making a mistake into the chicane. And is Dimas going to send it? No, he's not. He's a little bit too far back. But Brendan Lee did get that move. Does jump up into P13 further back. Thomas Seto looking to get ahead of Tom Roberts, but not close enough into the braking zone. Good look for it down towards turn 1 here. We head our way through, ready to begin lap 12, and you can see actually the mediums must be dropping off quite heavily, because Kian looks to be struggling to keep with the back of Christian Jacobs here. That gap was nearly 8 tenths there as though he was heading down towards the final corner. But of course you can see Godendorp with that DRS brings it all the way back down just to a couple of tenths as we head into turn 1 once again. Let's see what's happening with Dimas. Is he going to be under pressure here from Benzoni? I think he might be, because that gap's also starting to decrease. And we're starting to be more of a disparity now between the mediums and the hards. That is the major question here. We head our way through to turn 4. Of course, we can see further back there, Tudor Prezican right on the rear of Lucas Bays now, but no move being made there. And then, of course, a big shame for those two at the back, Welch and Bohm, who I believe got caught in an incident which involved Louis Welch hitting the pit wall. Don't know how that happened, but it did. All I saw in the background was a car fly off and someone on the grass, and then wings flying everywhere. Certainly wasn't ideal for those two, who I presume were the ones involved. As that's going to be a move further down. That's Benzoni on Dimas. Looking for the send, gets it done. That was a brilliant move there by the Mercedes caught. Dimas napping. I don't think Dimas was thinking he was going to go for it. Benzoni probably didn't think he was going to go for it either. But a bit of a poor exit allows Dimas to have a chance, but doesn't have it as they head into turn 14 once again. We continue on here, lap 13 of 33. There ain't going to be any moves down to turn 1. I don't think there is, unless there is from D'Ortenzio, looking to get ahead of Godin up here. In towards turn 1 they go. You could see was looking at the outside line. I think that the mediums are looking a bit shot here, as that's going to be a spin further back for Conrad Bohm in the Williams. On the hard tyres, hasn't been a good start to 25 here for Conrad Bohm, and it gets even worse. He's now 40 odd seconds down from the leader, 50 seconds nearly down from the leader, and now we can see a battle for P to emerge. Gonadorp, he's having to hold on for his life ahead of D'Ortenzio. Jan Halliday is well up the inside of the Mercedes as they head their way out to turn 5. No move being made there by Halliday, no move either being made by Angelo D'Ortenzio. As again, Bohm's around, it's just not going well, and hopefully he can get into the flow of it as we get to the end of the race in the middle parts, but so far not so good. We head into turn 10, and what a move this could be by Halliday. He's going to go to the outside of D'Ortenzio. He's going to commit to the inside line in towards turn 12. They go, and Jan Halliday goes through. What a move there by the Aston Martin. And Conrad Bohm has retired in the pit lane. Well, not going well at all for Conrad Bohm, that is safe to say. But a good exit here from Alves. Could be under pressure for D'Ortenzio. No, never mind. Just pull that gap a little bit more as we head our way down to turn 1. Let's see. Are we going to see any moves here from Jan Halliday? Because he's closing in to Kian Gonador. And we know Kian's struggling here by the looks of it, because these hard tyres are catching up quite quickly on the back of Gonador. Heading towards turn 4 again, and that's a spin. Is that? Oh no, that's just Louis Welch's car. No, sorry, that's Conrad Bohm's car in the pits. Exiting the pits, and that's Louis Welch's car in the pits. There we go. I'll get it right eventually. Yeah, Louis Welch already in the pits after 12 laps on the mediums. Now, what does that tell you possibly about the tyres on this game? We head our way in towards turn number 8 again, and Torquay was looking for an opportunity to get ahead of the Red Bull of Alexander Dimas, but not close enough there to make anything stick. We head our way back into turn 10. Still, Russian Jacobs comfortably holding the lead. Seems to be a very decent start to the new game for him here. But of course, like I said earlier on, they're on preset setup, so they're all on the same thing, pretty much. So don't buy into the results too much here, because of course things could all change by the time we get into the main season, which I believe will be around mid-July time. So make sure to get yourselves in the Discord here at PSGL to keep your eyes out when the sign-ups do open for the brand new season. Season 40, I think it is this season, or 41. I'm sorry, I should know that, shouldn't I? But I don't know. Get involved, guys. Get yourselves ready for a brand new season of PSGL racing. And what can Alves do there? Because he was quite close to the back of D'Ortenzio there. Is D'Ortenzio starting to struggle a little bit here, because he got overtaken by Halliday quite comfortably, and now he's under pressure from the Williams of Alves as they head their way into turn 5. Alves was looking for the move, but backed out either way. Didn't quite commit to going for a dive bomb there. Yeah, again, right on the rear of the Mercedes in towards the chicane. So not convincing here for D'Ortenzio so far on this one. Brendan Lee up into P12, of course started last in this race, and now we'll be looking to move a little bit higher and get onto the back of Leonardo Tonelato in P11 in the Haas car. We head down to turn 10. No move being made there for Brendan Lee just yet. Of course, as you all probably know, retired from esports last season, or from F1 Sim Racing last season, and he's looking to be more of a content creator. Will still, I presume, participate in some league racing, but not as much as he did before. Or at least, of course, not taking part in the main F1 esports or F1 Sim Racing season. He's going to have a bit of a retirement from that one. Of course, a bit of a shame to see Brendan Lee go, because he's one of the pillars of the community in the F1 Pro Series. That is safe to say. Of course, was there since the start in 2017 and leaving, heading on to F1 25. But in towards turn 4 we go. And this time, Godendorp looks like he's going to be putting a bit of pressure on the back of Richard Jacobs here. Into turn 5, any send being made? No. What about Alves though? On the back of D'Ortenzio to the inside of the Mercedes goes Nelson Alves. A little bit of wheel hook in there, a bit of contact between the two as they head into the chicane. Ahead goes Nelson Alves in the Williams car. Up into P4 now. One step away from the podium. But D'Ortenzio, will he be able to fight back? That is the question here. As we head in towards turn 10. We're now near enough halfway through the race. Lap 16 out of 33. Well, this is pretty much halfway through lap 16. Another 16 and a half to go in this one. And of course, the question is, when do they go into the pits? Because we've seen 15 laps from both mediums and hards at the moment. We've got 16 to go, so we're at that halfway point. And, well, there we go. Luca Rapassa is going in early. So is Brendan Lee. Onto the undercut here, trying to make that work. And the question is, will the undercut work? I'd hope it does, but got to see. We certainly have, and then on the other hand, it could be the overcut which is OP. That's the thing now that the drivers will be looking into. Of course, they can do race runs, they can do 5-lappers, but that doesn't really get an accurate representation of what goes on in a league race, and this is where we get to see what strategies work, and both of them brand spanking new medium tyres. And of course, they should be fine to the end because Keane Godendorp on high fuel has taken these 16 laps and is comfortably on the back of Jacobs. And of course, Rapassa and Lee are on a lot lower fuel than Godendorp was on at the start, and there's 16 laps to take these, so they should comfortably get to the end, probably with a decent bit of life left into them. We head our way back down towards turn 10. Is there going to be any pit stops this lap is the question. When does Jacobs decide to go in? Because it's always a tricky spot when you're in the lead because you don't know what to do. You never know what the cars behind are going to do. And then you're kind of double guessing yourself constantly. Do we pit? Do we stay out? And that's the one thing that Richard Jacobs has just got to think, right, we're going to go in. Doesn't, but Godendorp does, and he's going to be onto hards. That could certainly pose as a disadvantage here because so far, the mediums have been running quite well. So this could not go to plan for Godendorp, but then again, it certainly could, as you see Tonelato, Roberts, Massetto here, Teller, Pressacan, all into the pits here. Brand new tyres for everybody, hards for Godendorp and mediums for everybody else, as Alexander Dimas there, of course pitting earlier on, off the mediums onto the hards, is going to be swapping positions here with Rapassa, who takes the net lead of the Grand Prix in towards turn 1. Rapassa ahead of Dimas, ahead of D'Ortenzio, and that gap is 1.7 seconds. So certainly a bit of an undercut there for those guys, and it seems to have worked. Brendan Lee has came out 6/10 back from Keane Godendorp, and he was, 12 positions behind before the pit stops. So that undercut certainly working well for Lee, Alexander Dimas and Luca Rapassa here. They head their way out of turn number 5, up in towards the chicane once again. Of course, will be interesting to see when these guys at the front pit. Rishan's in, Halliday's in, Alves is in, Lund's staying out, Benzoni's in, Tulk is in, Pastor up, Tumas is in, Basener's in, everybody bar Leo Lund making their pit stop. So now everybody, that's going to be a 10-second penalty. Tumas Laminant with a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And, well, that certainly isn't going to give him any high positions here. He'll probably drop right to the back here. As we all continue on now, where does Jacobs come out? That's where I want to watch here. Into turn 1 actually comes out in the lead. Into turn 1 goes Jacobs, is in the lead of the Grand Prix. So started in first, has pitted and comes back out in the lead. Brilliant so far here by Richard Jacobs, and that's Halliday off the road and gets collected by Nelson Alves. The two former teammates collide at turn 3. Halliday and Alves out of the running for any decent spot here in this race. A big, big shame, and that now does promote some of those further back into a spot to fight for a podium. Big shame for those two. Pretty much out of the race now here. Our top 3, Jacobs, Dimas, Rapassa, ahead of D'Ortenzio, Godendorp, Brendan Lee, who's actually dropped outside the 1 second. Not going too well here for Brendan Lee. We head our way down towards turn number 10. Can Brendan Lee get back in? He does. Leo Lund now pits, and I'm keen to see where does he come out here, because he's left it longer than everybody else. Of course, his teammate in this race has got a penalty, so at least he'll come out 18th at least. Out to the pits he goes. Now, Jacob should fly past him. He's got to make this work. If he doesn't make this work, he's going to be overtaken by everybody and will come out pretty much near the back of the train. Hit limiter off, foot down, foot straight down. What can he do as he heads down to turn 1? Where does he come out in this one? Going to be close with Hietala. Actually, might be close with Benzone. Comes out in P9 there. Nelson Alves is going to be retiring from this race, and I presume so will Jan Halliday later on in this one. We close down now into turn 4. Jacobs under pressure from Dimas. Rapasa as well. Also looking to do a decent job here in this one. The breakers on they go, back on the power once again. And we have a yellow flag in sector 1, but I don't know what for because nobody's going slow. So a bit of a glitch there. And one thing I would be interested to see is a safety car. I don't think we'll get one, but it would be nice to see a safety car here to see how they work in this game, to see if everything actually works well. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I'm hoping there's no issues with safety cars on this game because it had a pretty much safety car free issue last game, but I think it was 23 when they had their little ups and downs. We head our way through in towards turn 14, 15, and down towards turn 1 we go. As we got a little bit further back here, Leo Lund on the back of Riccardo Benzone. Oh, that was a bit of a glitch there. Not ideal, but make it through. And Tom Roberts being overtaken there by Elliot Tomasetto. Contact between the two. Tom and Tomasetto not too happy with each other there for a moment, and both of them off onto the escape road temporarily. As they head in towards turn 4, Rimas Lamanen jumps up into P13, pushes Tomasetto wide to get that move complete. Benzone ahead of Lund there. They're both on the back of Tony Hietala though as they head their way down to turn 8. Can Leo Lund make the move? He's going to have to go to the outside, has to back out though, isn't quite alongside enough to make a move. As we head our way back into turn 9 once again. And Leo Lund of course is on pressure tyres on everyone, so this is a test. Are these newer tyres going to help out? As Alexander Dimas goes in for the lead, Jacobs I think actually choosing to sit back. He wants that DRS to aid him down towards turn 1, but of course all of that has held everybody up and they're all within a couple of tenths of each other here heading into the final corner. D'Hortenzio you can see using a bit of battery there on the back of Rapasa, can't quite make a move. Stays back for now, and D'Hortenzio, sorry, it's going to be Dimas under pressure from Jacobs. Christian Jacobs back into the lead now. Luca Rapasa looking to jump ahead into P3. To P2, sorry, from P3, can't do so, but a bit wide there for Dimas. Could cost him some time, certainly does. That gap now to Christian Jacobs. Goes up to 8 tenths here as we head our way down towards turn number 4. Let's see what happens here, in towards a braking zone. Actually, I think that could be... Well, actually, Godendorf doing a good job here. It's just been a bit quiet these last couple of laps. Of course, went on to hard tyres when the others went on to mediums. He's sticking with the train quite well, so possibly could be a bit of a strategic masterclass here for Kian Godendorf. You can see, heading through in towards turn number 9. Leo Lund on the back of Riccardo Benzone. He's also looking to close in. And what's happened here, because Dimas has completely dropped off the back of Jacobs here. And now this does give an opportunity to Jacobs to pretty much run away with this one. I remember back in, I think it was season 35 or 36, Christian Jacobs was around Spain, was in a leading position and lost it after having such a big gap. And this time, it looks like that's not going to be a worry because he's flying out in front, absolutely miles quicker than the rest of the field. Down to turn 1 we go. Now can Rapasa make the move? He's got to, hasn't he? But here comes D'Hortenzio in towards turn 1. Can't quite get ahead, and you can see Rapasa there just tapping the back of Dimas. And now D'Hortenzio is on the scene. He's looking to capitalise and get ahead of Luca Rapasa here. Can't do so. Stays behind in P4 for now. You can just see there Dimas is lacking pace here at the moment. Unless he's doing it on purpose just to keep Rapasa behind. He's looking to solidify this P2. Then to turn 5 we go. Godendorf there, also in the wings of things, looking to try and make something work here for himself. Sits in P5 currently. That battle for the win is gone, I think, here. I think the battle is mainly for P2 in this race. Leo Lund, though, on the back of Benzone, and it looked like he backed out of a move. Was looking to make a move ahead of Benzone. Down towards turn 9. Could look for it down into turn 10 here, however. Up into P8 for the Ferrari. He's going to keep it around the outside. I think got a bit of a tap there from Benzone. Has the inside line in towards turn 12. And keeps, and well, takes that P8 spot away from Ricardo Benzoni. Up into P8 for Leo Lund, a great move indeed. As we head our way in towards the final couple of corners to begin lap 24 of 33. Mission Jacobs is flying out even more this lap. Took another 7/10 out of Alexander Dimas. Angelo D'Ortenzio looking for a move. Actually taps the back of Rapasa, heading in towards turn 1. He's got a decent run though into turn 3, taking a different line. Probably not the optimal one there. As we head in towards turn 4, and Jake Benham, great to have him in the chat, says we're only 16 laps on the hards. Tyre wear, I presume it's quite high. We saw in the chat earlier on in Discord, people were saying that the tyre wear was quite high, so yes, I presume that's why. If not, I don't have a clue. I'm just following what other people say. But let's see what can Gordon Dorp do here. Of course, he's on the hard tyres. The mediums, of course, will be quicker for a lot longer. But, of course, the hards near the end will have a bit more pace. So, interesting to see what happens here with Gordon Dorp near the end. We head our way towards turn 10. Oh, that's going to be Leo Lund there, looking to try and fight past Itala to jump up into P7. Does get the move done. Up into P7 there for Leo Lund. A great move by the Ferrari car. Further back, the two Hassie swapping round. That's going to be Larry Torquay looking to get back ahead though in towards the final corner. That was a very interesting move indeed from Larry Torquay, but takes it nevertheless up into P11 now for the FBR car. Further back here, Luca Rapasa looking to close in on Dimas. But this time hasn't quite got the advantage he had earlier on. Before, he was flying on the back of Dimas, but this time around hasn't quite got that excellent pace to really be constantly on the back of him. This Godendorp there for a second was right on the back of Angelo D'Ortenzio, was looking for a move up into P4. Not close enough this time around, however. They head into the braking zone. Further back, Ricardo Benzoni's on the back of Tony Hirtala. We've got a yellow flag further down. That's Tomasato having a bit of a spin or a bit of contact with someone into the turn 5 braking zone. Yellow flag's out temporarily, but they all continue on for now. We look a bit further ahead, and that gap still, well, it hasn't really increased on the last 2 laps. It went up to 2.6 on lap 23, but the past 2 laps it's only went up by a couple of tenths, and now it sits at just under 3 seconds on the end of lap 25. As that was Leo Lund there, looking to make a move ahead of Brendan Lee. Of course, Brendan started last here, so has done a really good job so far to work his way up the field. Would still get a decent finish in this one. Of course, realistically, would like to be closing in on the back of Godendorp, but just doesn't quite have that pace at the moment. It seems to really be posing a challenge on Godendorp ahead. So we head our way through the first couple of corners once again. And D'Ortenzio still finding P4, of course, the dirty air being a bit more featured in this game, meaning they can't constantly run behind everybody in the braking zones and down the straight. So certainly does make a move more rewarding here nowadays. There's further back there, that's Baysnap getting ahead of Tudor Pressacan, jumping up into P14, but Tudor sends it right back down the inside, trying to get back up into P14 now ahead of Lucas Baysnap, and does so. Up into P14 goes the McLaren of Tudor Pressacan. As of course we head our way back down towards turn number 5, turn number 10 here with Godendorp closing in on the back of D'Ortenzio again, and this time Angelo's dropped a little bit of pace now to the rear of Luca Rapasa, so would also be struggling a little bit with overheating of the engine, also with that dirty air which seems to be quite prevalent, especially in the corners. The drivers seem to really struggle here to follow through a couple of these corners, especially the high speed ones. As we head our way back down towards turn 1 once again, lap 27 of 33, 6 to go in the Grand Prix, and Brendan Lee is under pressure now from Leo Lund, of course, who pitted a lot earlier than Brendan Lee, 3 laps earlier, and has got considerably better pace at the moment here. Lee, as they head their way into turn 3 and towards turn 4, still not close enough, and it just shows how much of a challenge it is this game to make moves. Of course, if you saw a 3-car disparity between 2 drivers, normally they'd be within a couple of tenths and the move would be made quite quickly, but Leo Lund just can't get close. Brendan Lee, he's never in a position to make a move, and that is what is definitely going to make the racing a lot more interesting here on this game, and you're definitely going to have to pick your moves at the right times. As we head our way back down towards turn 10, is Leo Lund close enough to make a move this time? He was close, but not close enough. Brendan Lee, though, is shuffling a bit wide through the exit of turn 10. And Leo Lund is right on the back of him through turn 12, and you can just see there, hasn't quite got the, you can see he's lacking a bit of grip through some of those corners, especially on the back of Brendan Lee. And of course he's lost, what, 2/10 in the space of 3 corners, which normally you would not do. So certainly a little bit of dirty air making an appearance. And we look further ahead once again, and they're not focused on making moves. Rapassa's just comfortable staying in P3 here. As Nelson Alves has left the session, of course, had contact earlier on with Jan Halliday. He's now going to be departing us here. And Jake says, I don't understand why they let him have this gap. No, nor me. Yeah, I don't know why at all. I think Dimas just slowed down heavily through. Well, he lost about a second or something in one lap. He slowed down heavily, heading out of turn 9 and in towards the final corner a few laps ago. That just gave Rishan a gap, and then that gap kept increasing and increasing. And then since then, Dimas has been barely losing any sort of time compared to Rishan. So, yeah, very interesting to see why he chose to hold everybody up there. And Jack says, are they on increased N or balanced? Don't know. I'd imagine it's preset 2 or 3. Would even be preset 4 if you're looking to be a bit more of aggressive driver. So yeah, we don't know, but I'd reckon most of them are on the same. They've probably all tested what works the best, and they've all gone for the same format of setup. As we head our way back down towards turn 1, of course. Yeah, again, no moves being made. What a surprise! As D'Ortenzio is just closing in on the back of Rapassa, Gonadorp as well. Actually, with a decent run here through turn 3. Of course, he's starting to light up these hard tyres. So far, we haven't really seen a difference in the mediums and the hards. They've both been doing quite a similar pace here at the moment, especially Gonadorp and the mediums around him. As we head our way down in towards turn 5 again. You can just see the drivers, of course, they're flicking it in. They need to get a bit of turning, but not as much as we saw on F124, because you know the tyre wear is a lot higher. You can see Gonadorp, they're very smooth into the chicane. I presume we'll see the same again. You can just see, not flicking at all into these high speed and medium speed corners. As we head down towards turn 10 again with Leo Lund. A bit of a lock-up you can hear in the background. Not close enough again to get ahead of Brendan Lee, and that's the struggle he's in. He just can't find a move. He looks quicker than Brendan Lee. As Luca Rapassa takes a 3-second time penalty. Now that certainly is livening things up for the battle for the podium. Now Angelo D'Ortenzio enters that battle for that top 3 spots, and Dimas has been kind of gifted here, a P2 as it seems. 3 laps to go in this race. Rishan Jacobs leads ahead of Dimas and Rapassa, and Jacobs has just been flying. It's not like he's had outstanding pace. He's just been consistent. Consistent every lap. He's pumping in really good lap times and just keeping himself comfortably clear of Dimas and co behind us. Louis Welch back into the pits once again. Not been the start that Louis Welch would have wanted here. Certainly not. As Kane Gonadorp, though, making a move, looking to get a move done. A bit of contact involved, but does get ahead of Angelo D'Ortenzio up into P4 for Gonadorp, and now knows he's on the cusp of a podium here, depending how these last couple of laps go. We head our way through out of turn 9 down towards turn 10 again, and this time around we'll have 2 to go here. Jacobs still in the lead comfortably, just needs to focus on not making a mistake, and this time Leo Lund is looking to make that move on Brendan Lee. Into turn 12 we go. The Ferrari sends it up the inside. Brendan Lee gets forced wide. A bit of tyre hook in here. Leo Lund is still fighting with Brendan Lee as they head into turn 13 and 14. And Brendan Lee, you could see, just trying to do all he can to keep Leo Lund behind as they head out of the final corner, back down towards turn 1 on lap 31 of 33. And Leo Lund has got that move done, and now Tony Hirtala looking to get ahead of Brendan Lee as well into turn 1. Brendan forcing him all the way to the inside. Into turn 1 they go, side by side, very close to contact between the two. Let's watch the view from Benzoni. Hirtala gets shuffled wide off the circuit, re-enters behind Brendan Lee, and now Benzoni is to the inside of the McLaren in the Mercedes. Into turn 4 he goes, looks to get ahead. Can he get that move done? You could just see, bit of a mistake on the exit there, no grip whatsoever for Tony Hirtala. And Tom Roberts as well, looking to make a move but can't, goes a bit deep, loses time there on the back of the McLaren. Let's have a little look further ahead. So Luca Rapassa is in P3. He's now going to save all his battery ready for the final lap in 2 laps time, just to do what he can, get ahead of Dimas, and just try and pull a bit of a gap to not, you know, make it such a damaging penalty. Of course, at the moment we'll drop. Let's have a look at the gap to leader. So he'll drop down towards P8. Of course, if he can get past Demas and put in a good lap, he could bring that gap maybe a couple of tenths down and get himself maybe a position higher here in this one. Of course, not what we expected to see from Rapasa, that is for sure. He's normally a very consistent and quick driver, never normally gets involved in penalties, as Tom Roberts also joins Rapasa in the penalty club along with Thomas Lamanen. Into turn one we go. Thomas Sasso also getting a penalty here. As soon as I say no one's getting penalties, they all start flying through. As we head on to the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix now, Christian Jacobs is in the lead, 2.6. It hasn't really came down, but it hasn't really shot up. He's just happy where he is, just not pushing too hard, because as soon as you push too hard, you make mistakes, and that's not what Jacobs wants to do. As we head into turn 5, though, a good exit here by Conradop could get him that P3 spot on track. As we head in towards turn number 8, and I think Luca let him through. I don't think he was keen on fighting that one, because Keane would not back out. And now we have an opportunity, possibly, for P2 and P3 to have a battle to the finish. Of course, everybody who started on the hards, apart from Rishan, is P4 or lower. The only two that started on the mediums sit P2 and P3. So it seems that medium hard strategy was the correct strategy here to carry through into the Grand Prix. And Demas with an absolute blinder. I think qualified like P9, P10. He's now on the cusp of taking a podium home. As we head our way out of the final corner for the final time, Leo Lund taking a penalty. Rishan Jacobs is flying off in the lead, but can Keane Gonadorp take that P2 away from Alexander Demas? He's not close enough into turn 1. He hasn't got the gap to make the move, so he's going to have to look for it either into turn 4 or down to turn 5 or turn 10. That's the only 3 spots he has the opportunity to make a move here on the final lap of the race, lap 33 of 33. You can just see into turn 4, not close enough. A bit of a mistake there, pushing too hard here is Keane, and I don't think he's going to get this move. He's going to have to save battery through this sector here into turn 5, into the chicane. He's got to get a decent run through here to give himself a nice run down towards turn 10, otherwise his battle for the podium, battle for B2 is over. Into turn 9 we go. Can Gonadorp have a decent run? He's got a decent run, but I don't think it'll be enough here. No, it won't. He's nowhere near close enough to get ahead of Alexander Demas, but we go back to the front, and Rishan Jacobs with a bit of a slide through turn 12. That wouldn't have ended too well if he ended up spinning the car around. And well, a surprise for P2 on the grid, and now will enter his way into turn 14 for the final time. And to open up F125, it's Rishan Jacobs who takes the win here in Spain. Alexander Demas in second, and Gonadorp rounding off the top 3. And a penalty for a pass that drops him even further down. And because Keane's after the session, we got the glitch. It DNFs him, but it was, of course, Keane Gonadorp finishing in 3rd, and Brendan Lee 20th to 5th. You can't moan at that one, that's for sure. But what a race that was. Of course, a little bit quiet at points, but of course that dirty air's back, so you're not constantly able to make moves. But for the end, that medium hard was the one that worked, and Demas and Gonadorp certainly capitalised, and you would have thought it could have been a 1-2 for the hard runners there if that gap to Rishan didn't get let loose at around lap 20. As Louis Welch crosses a line to take home P16. And my voice is absolutely dead, so I'm sorry guys if I started to get a bit quieter as the race got along. I can't remember the last time I commentated solo, especially here at PSGL. It's been a rather long time indeed. But of course we can see our new little accolades awarded. So Rishan, race winner. Louis Welch with the fastest lap. Alexander Demas is the driver of the day, made the most overtakes, and then cleanest driver, Rishan Jacobs. So there we go, guys. Our new little accolades that we get for drivers in the lobby. But our final race classification, it will be Rishan Jacobs in P1, Alexander Demas 2nd, Gonadorp 3rd, Angelo D'Ortenzio P4, followed by Brendan Lee, Riccardo Benzoni, Tony Hietala, Luca Rapasa, Larry Tolkien, Leonardo Tonelato rounding off the top 10. Then we had Leo Lund, Tom Roberts, Tujo Prasican, Lucas Beisner, Elliot Thomas Seto, Thomas Lamanen, Louis Welch, and then of course, unfortunately, we lost Jan Halliday, Nelson Alves, and Conrad Bohm. But there we go. Great start to the new game, and we're going to see if we can get a chat from our top 3. Of course, it's only a social race, but I want to hear their first thoughts of the new game. Let's have a quick question to them all. Move ourselves back over to the main camera. Absolutely terrible haircut, which needs to go again. I've tried so many. Last time I was here, I had a bit of a poor haircut, and I've still got a poor one now. I'm surprised I haven't been bullied for it in the chat yet, but we'll drag Rishan in. We can see him in the waiting room. Rishan, welcome in. Can you hear us? Perfect. So, well, a perfect start to F125. Of course, we know that we've got preset setups and everybody's learning the game, but that couldn't have gone any better, could it?
Everything was quite boring, but yeah, apart from that, it was yeah, pretty much perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, this game, I've heard a lot of people say it was more of an evolution of 24, more than a brand new handling model. So what would you say was like the key improvements that they've made so far?
To be honest, just the handling in general. It's a lot more fun to drive, especially in race trim, in my opinion. A lot more rewarding as well. So I think they've made quite a good step with that, and yeah, it's been yeah, quite nice to see them actually making progress with the game. Although that was it was quite a low bar that they set with last year's game.
Yeah, definitely. They didn't have to do much to improve it.
Yeah,
I was going to ask about the dirty air, but of course you led from every lap, so you didn't have to suffer much with overtaking. But from what you've heard, is there much of a difference with dirty air this game? Does it exist now?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's much more prominent in race trim. So yeah, I think overall it's much better to you know, race against. It's not basically the shocking standards that we had last year's game, where every car was within like 2/10s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was yeah, quite nice.
Well, Rishan, thanks for joining us. Of course, a perfect start to the game, and hopefully you can carry that momentum heading into the next season. I presume you'll be signing up, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be quite fun, hopefully.
Certainly. So, Rishan, thanks for joining us. Have a good evening. It was a pleasure once again. See you later, mate.
Yes, thank you much.
And Alex will bring in Alexander Dimas. Alex, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Perfect. So, welcome in. Of course, another great start to the game. Of course, I believe last game he was in F4. Am I correct?
Yes.
And now you're up at the top of it. Well, an F2, F3, F4 grid. So, a very good start to the game. Strategy worked perfect, didn't it? Medium to hard. Most others went for the hard medium. So, the pace, are you impressed with it so far?
I mean, it was a social race, just trying the strategy though. Not going boring hard medium, just going medium hard. I mean, I could overtake some people, but I was on a lower grip, so everyone was on like a different set than me. So I quite had a struggle with that, but then I could overtake some people, and then it worked out at the end. It wasn't really easy, but I quite like it, also the game.
Definitely, and of course, at the start of the second stint, you was with Rishan quite comfortably, and then you dropped off to about 2 seconds all of a sudden. And what was the reason for that? Because after that point, you was quite comfortably on the back of, well, comfortably keeping with the gap of Rishan at about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, so I think he just had better tires at the beginning, and then I think also because of different preset, because I was on the lower wing, and Luca Ripasso behind me also pitted quite early, so I might be able to. I might was a bit lucky with that one as well. So I think I went the wrong set, but I went the right set for overtaking basically, because yeah, just trying stuff.
And of course, at the start of the race, she was constantly making moves, and of course on the medium tyres a lot quicker. How was the dirty air for you? Because of course I asked Rishan, but he was at the front the whole time, so we didn't get to experience any. But for you, yourself, how was that dirty air, and how was it managing through the race?
I mean, you can really tell, like, the more to the back you are, the worse the dirty air is. And also, if there are 3 people in front of you, there's more dirty air. And if you are really close to someone, then you're basically not making the corner. Like, it's quite insane, the dirty air. But if you have like a tire advantage, you can of course overtake, but it's like really hard to do if the guy in front just saves ERS and just uses everything on the straight, on the important straight. then he just keeps in front basically. So you really need a good tire advantage, or else you will not overtake in this dirty air. So I think it's quite fun, the dirty air, but it will also make things maybe boring at the end with fighting.
Certainly, and of course, before we let you go, one last question. Tire wear, of course, people have been saying it was a lot higher. Is it a lot higher in this game from what you've seen so far?
I mean, in the first stint I was puncture level, I think.
Oh.
And then the second stint I was also quite high. So yes, it's a lot higher for me then. I don't know if the...
But anyway, Alexander, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you in the commentary box, and
thank you.
hopefully we'll see you racing again next season.
Yeah, thank you. See you later.
Right, so... there we go. An interesting start to the game. Of course, the racing on track got a little bit boring halfway through and towards the end because, of course, dirty air, you can't just be making moves constantly because you've got that bit of a gap behind you. You haven't got the grip that you would have wanted. So we're not going to see as many moves coming into the end of races that we have in the past. But either way, a really positive start. And I don't think there was any issues. The only issue I saw was the names being not the size they should be, so you can't see the full names on the screen, and also the yellow flag staying constantly out for the whole race. Apart from that, there was no issues, so a very, very big improvement. Probably one of the best day one releases we've had in a long time, probably since, I think, F121 possibly. So that's definitely a great thing to look at, and of course, there's not only just racing now, we've got the second lobby which has just began. That began 20 minutes ago actually. Qualifying should be near concluding, so guys, make sure to head over to that stream. Of course, Joseph will be in the commentary box there. They won't be too far away from starting their race, so a big thank you to everybody for joining us this evening to start off a brand new game sequence. We'll be back, of course, when the new season begins. We reckon mid-July maybe, possibly a bit earlier, but of course nothing before the start of July, so make sure to get yourselves in the Discord, to follow our socials, PSGL over on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and of course get yourselves involved as much as you can. Guys, I'll get my words out. Guys, thank you for joining. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.